Now, how do you build an agent? It's simple. If you can drag and drop, you can build an agent. It requires zero AI expertise. You are essentially giving your agent three things: a brain, hands, and memory. First, the brain. This is the goal system prompt and LLM model that I have listed out here. The LLM model you choose will be the reasoning brain of the agent. And we give you flexibility to choose across top tier GPT and Claude models. Once you have chosen the brain, you simply define a goal. For example, a goal could be you are a DevOps expert. Help me understand the health of my deployments. And finally, you can also give instructions to the agent in the form of a system prompt. Second, the hands. This is your MCP and tools, and this is where things get incredibly powerful. Think of Model Context Protocol or MCP as the universal USB-C adapter for AI tools. We provide a New Relic MCP server out of the box, equipped with nearly 30 tools. And here's a pro tip when you're trying to build an agent. Scoping an agent down to just the 3 or 4 tools that it actually needs for its specific goal dramatically increases accuracy and safety. Now, accuracy is apparent, but safety is also an important component in here because it gives you safety since the tools that you provide the agent is what the agent will use. So in a way, you are bounding the agent into determining what it can or cannot do rather than give it a whole suite of tools. Finally, the memory. This is the knowledge base that's listed here. You can wire your agent directly to your Confluence pages or PDFs. For example, if an alert triggers, the agent can check an uploaded roster in an Excel file, see who the service owner is, and loop them in automatically. Now, once you have built your agent, we give you 2 ways to deploy it. To the left, it's the interactive copilot mode. This is an on-demand chat that you can have with your agent. You can ask your agent to show the insights you need, ask follow-on questions, progressively deep dive into an issue together. To the right is the autonomous mode, and this is the ultimate Swiss Army knife for hyperautomation. Using the workflow automation engine that Garima just described, you can trigger your agent the second an alert fires. You can run a few pre-steps to fetch context, maybe invoke a webhook, fetch some data from the web, and pass that to the agent to analyze. And then you can use post steps to take safe human in the loop action or drop a comprehensive summary directly into Slack or Teams or whichever tool you prefer. In short, you can build really powerful agentic workflows. Okay, let me start from here. So you get to the homepage or all capabilities, and from there you get to agentic platform. As I said, the top section has our first party agents. Then we have the custom agents. When you try to build an agent, it's a simple drag and drop experience. So going back to my analogy of the brain, like hands and memory. So here, this is the brain part of it. You give an agent a name to the agent, a description. You provide the system prompt, and then you choose the LLM configuration. We have a variety of options that you can choose from, and then you provide the temperature, which is essentially a proxy for the creativity that you want the agent to display in some ways. And then comes the tools, the hands part of it, which is where you have our New Relic MCP server. So you can just wire it up to the agent, and then we have all the tools. Let's say my agent only needs to analyze deployment impact and analyze entity logs. I can just select those as part of it. And then I can also wire up nerd graph tools as part of it. So nerd graph essentially is it wraps around a nerd graph query, and then it presents it as a tool to the agent. And then finally, we have the memory, which are the knowledge connectors. And let's quickly take see a few agents in action. So I'll show a set of 3 agents, and the general connecting theme between the 3 agents is around alert management. But the persona is slightly different, and the sophistication is also different. So let's start with a Slack support agent. So the persona here is a L1 support engineer who does not have all the technical details of what an alert has, what details it has, what services it refers to. So I built the agent, and you can, as you can see, it's a very sort of straightforward agent. I'm just saying you are an IT operations and on-call expert, and your audience is the customer support team. And I give it a bunch of do's and don'ts. That's pretty much it. And I give it the ability to analyze golden metrics and the ability to list recent issues. So the first question I ask the agent is, what can you do? Because maybe I was not the agent author. And so it tells you that it can help bridge the gap between technical operations and customer support. It can investigate incidents, analyze metrics, and help you communicate clearly with customers. So then I ask, how is the ad service entity doing? And it does a pretty good job of looking at the recent issues, what's happening with it, what is the customer impact, what's broken, and then it gives a message of what should support tell customers. So it crafts a quick message, and this is where, as you know, LLMs shine. And it gives a timeline of when the issue was detected, what's being done, support team activations, and then it also gives you a link to the dashboard itself. So that's a very sort of straightforward scenario where a L1 support engineer can derive more knowledge on what exactly is happening. Now, building a little bit on top of that is the alert Zen, where instead of the New Relic MCP server, now we have 4 nerd graph tools. These are essentially queries with filters that you want to fetch data from, and you provide that, sort of wrap it up as a tool and provide it to the agent. Here, the first question that we ask is identify noisy alerts in this account. And the persona typically is like an operations manager or a lead operations person who wants to understand how alerts are generally configured and how they are doing in the organization. So alerts then goes ahead, does a detailed noisy alert analysis. It looks at all the critical alerts. It lists the top few of the alerts, and then it does a pattern analysis of the alerts, and then it comes to some priority actions. It also estimates the impact of it, summarizes it, and then I then follow up and say, can you dive more into the issues faced by rage clicks, which if you see is the first one here. And so I'm having a follow-on conversation with the agent, and now it dives deep into the rage clicks analysis, and then it provides the numbers first. And then it also figures out that the alert exhibits a cry wolf pattern, right? Because the alerts are firing all the time, but no one is doing anything. So it gives you some data to back that up. And then essentially it gives the business impact. It gives you recommended solutions, and with action plan on like disabling the condition and things like that, right? And it gives a final bottom line which says this alert is generating so many incidents with 0 value. And finally, it says the 100% expiration rate is a clear signal that this alert has lost all credibility with your team. I don't know about you, but if AlertZen is that confident, I'll probably go with that recommendations. Moving on, so this is the next level of alert management. Here, the persona is more of an on-call engineer. Here, I'm also bringing the knowledge connector into the mix. So there are a set of retro documents that have sort of speak about incidents that have occurred in the organization in the past. And then you have the New Relic MCP server with a set of 9 different tools. Now, the question that I'm asking it is, can you analyze this particular issue, which I got from the issue payload? By the way, you can totally wire it up automatically to an issue as well and pick this up from the payload. But here we are just chatting with the agent. So it goes ahead and does a detailed issue analysis of the particular issue. And then it says that root cause from the past incidents, it's picking up a particular date. And that is something that it's getting from one of the incident retros. And so it uses the root cause analysis here, but it simply does not provide the root cause from the retro. It also goes ahead and it does its own sort of correlation of what it sees. It does a correlation and recommendation, and then it also gives the propagation path, what actions are required, and gives a bunch of recommendations and lessons from past incidents. Now I go one step ahead and I say, are there any open alerts in the last 24 hours which have a retro doc from the past? Again, it's able to do that. It goes and looks at all the retro docs and correlates with it, and in the end, gives me a really good table of the recent alerts that I saw and which of those have a retro with some key insights and some action plans. So now we have seen the co-pilot mode of it, where you chat with the agent and then you ask follow-on conversations, try to glean more insights from the agent. Let's get to the other section of it, which is the autonomous mode. So the alerts and agent that you saw, you don't have to always interact with it in a co-pilot mode. You can also plug that into the workflow automation that Garima showed. In this case, the workflow will execute either automatically via API or on a schedule. So it calls the alerts in agent and it gets the core message. And this is where we use Python script. I don't want the entire section. I structure it using the agent and I pick up a particular part from it. And then I call a sanitizer agent, which actually formats it into a really neat HTML template. And it then sends over the email to me here. So once the report comes out, it looks something like this, right? So for example, in this case, it was a particular Java app and it does a detailed alert analysis and the entire HTML is sort of generated by the AI. There is no HTML code that was provided. The sanitizer agent actually pulled this through. And so this is something that can actually, before calling the alerts and agent, you can have a few more steps if you want to, depending on your business logic. And you can maybe run once a week, Monday 9 a.m. analysis for the last week's alerts and generate a report like this. So that's in a nutshell about what we have here. And I'd love for you to take the platform for a spin, and I can't wait to see what you build out of it.